Doug White from Model Car Muse. I'm here with Vince LoBosco, Paul Drago. Paul's from Liars, Long Island Auto Replica Society.
And a Newburgh Model Car Club.
My home club. Paul is just blowing us away with this Garlits. I would call it a diorama.
We had a little problem trying to figure out what class this morning.
Yeah.
We didn't know if it was a diorama.
Yeah.
But what he said was the diorama usually tell a story and you have many other elements besides the car itself. All right, okay, technicality. So we'll try competition.
I love looking at it going, look at that camshaft. Okay, so that's what the lobes are like. Looking at the locked rear ends, looking at the finish on the halibut. Got so much depth to it.
What did you use on those?
Okay, the basic kit
Yeah.
is the Don Garlits Windjammer kit.
Yeah.
And the engine is very unique on that kit because it does have a separate crank, and the blower actually has rotors inside the blower housing. So I said, gee, you know, you build it, everything goes inside the engine, no one sees it and appreciates it. And then all of a sudden I said, I remember that photograph from Hot Rod magazine back in 1964, and I said, bing, I want to show all the parts, and I committed to it, and well, there it is. It was actually a lot easier. It just took a lot of time.
Sure.
But basically, most of the parts are from the kit. Extra parts are scratch built. I use watch parts. Things like this, for example, for discs, the flywheel, and some electronic components. And when I had a problem with the rear end, Ernie Fenimore, who's a slot car fanatic, who's also in our club, says, why don't you use the HO gears from the Aurora AFX cars?
Sure,
And they fit.
for the ring gear.
Yeah.
Nice.
I used a lot of Alclad lacquer, tried to simulate aluminum panels with that and get the metal block of the engine. I used dry pigments and oil paint, and the rest was relatively easy.
There is an incredible amount of depth with all the different paints and the finishes you have on there. I mean, each part has a unique look just with its finish alone, let alone the fact that it's, you know, a different component for the car.
I went through a lot of photos.
Really enjoying it.
When I looked at a bell housing, I would look at hundreds of pictures of a bell housing and say, you know, what? It's not just a piece of aluminum. It's the way it's shaped and it has depth. And so I had to really study it, and I learned a lot because I'm not an engine expert. There's guys in the club that'll blow me away. That's a 392, and that's you know. So I had to be really, really careful to stay within the reference point. But the whole idea is get the basic idea and just, you know, leave it out there.
So that AMT kit that came out, I guess in '64.
They reissued it several times. Yeah.
And looking at this is so clean and crisp. Those body panels, are they from the kit?
It's from the kit. Yeah. What I did was
because they look like they're just like a light aluminum panel.
Yeah. Well, that's how it is in the photo.
That incredibly thick plastic.
This is what gave it away, because you realize it's aluminum. It's not fiberglass. So what I did was, in order to give the impression of aluminum, the only thing that I was able to do was to use Alclad in the interior. See, just to kind of make it look like it's hammered aluminum, it's dirty, it's been taken apart, it's got, you know, oil or whatever. I didn't want it to look pristine and new. In this diorama, there's a rat. Don Garlits is known as the swamp rat, and if you look really carefully, there is a rat right here that I had to put.
What did you use on the wheels, Paul?
Alclad. I stripped everything down.
Those wheels.
Yeah, the chrome tends to be a little overwhelming with its brightness.
But you did an amazing job on it.
And what I did was I used Alclad, and then I used a little bit of flat black just to kind of bring it down a little bit.
Got great shadow in there.
Those wheels look real.
These are hand printed from the kit, so there wasn't really much that I had to do except hollow it out and sand it down. So
I have to say, when you picked that up just now, it made me really nervous.
No,
you thought everything was going to fall off.
It was like, catch all the parts.
It's heavy.
No, I don't want to do this.
It's heavy.
Oh, it's felt on the bottom so it doesn't slide.
That's what I did. Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Okay.
All right. So here's a trick that I want to share this with everyone. My biggest problem: how do you get the parts to lay down without glue oozing? And the answer is You don't glue the pieces to the floor. You paint the floor and you put the pieces on it. This is real floor enamel that you use in your garage. It's very, very thick, and this is a piece of masonite to give it a little bit of texture. So I put 3 or 4 coats of the floor paint, and then when it was tacky, I just start to put my pieces. And then when it dries, it all blends in. So I started assembling from here and worked my way down, you know, and then the only way to find out if a piece wasn't glued or not was to turn it over, and whatever fell off,
Yeah, it just knocks me out. It's so cool.
Fred Lorenzen model started out as a club project that we did online for the Newburgh Model Car Club. Don Betterton, one of our members who moved down south, he sent a picture one day of Mario Andretti's 67 Fairlane?
Yes, the Fairlane.
And a couple of us went back and forth on our group text, and we said, geez, we should do vintage race cars as a model theme, and we'll set a deadline, and we built it. So Jim Devine, in his collection of kits, he also had a stock Ford Galaxie that he had started working on. And I had said, geez, I really want to do the Fred Lorenzen car. So I bought the decals from Mike's Decals, and I bought the wheels and tires from Plastic Performance Products.
Excellent.
Which are just beautiful wheels and tires. And I proceeded to build the Fred Lorenzen car with the Wimbledon white paint, converted the stock car to the race version. I added a lot of photo etch details. This part just did not look real on the kit because the bumper and the grill is molded together. So I cut out the grill from the bumper, separated it, and I made the pan that goes in the middle, and then made everything a separate component so I could put it all back together. And then it gave a much more realistic appearance of the front end. And then I bare metal foiled the bumper.
I was going to say, that looks like it's chrome plated.
I didn't want to send it out for chrome plating because we had a deadline for the club project.
That's bare metal foil.
Yeah, so I covered the bumper in bare metal foil.
That's really amazing.
I polished it and polished it. And it came out like that. It looked really good.
That's great.
And I bare metaled the grill as well. And I took out the emblem, the stock Galaxie emblem that was on the grill, and various little things to make the race for it.
Oh yeah.
So,
and I know you have a ton of time into those side windows.
Yes,
they're just perfect.
Thank you. Yeah. The windows from the kit were unfortunately unusable. The windshield had a crack, and you know what happens when the tire lays on the glass. The front windshield from the kit was just ruined, and the back window had been ruined also. So I replaced the windows with the clear plastic. That product called what is it? Some initials.
Right, I got it right.
It's some clear plastic.
What is it? Come on, what's the name?
Pet G.
Pet G. That's it.
G.
Okay.
It's some clear plastic that Yuha Aero told Dave Best about when we were at GSL. Right. And Dave sent away for some, he sent me some, and I used it on these to make the front and rear windows.
I would assume it's easy to form.
It is. It bends nice and easily, and I made little tracks in so I could kind of snap it in place.
So this is why we love this guy. That's
Hops and
So it was a fun build, and it was a car that I always wanted to do, and it was for our club project, so we had a great time doing it.
Question for you guys. How did you get started in modeling?
all right. This is the truth. Remember the Aurora Guillotine?
Yes.
Okay. That model is what got me started. When I was very young, everything was Aurora Monsters.
Yeah, I remember that.
Every store had it, every candy store, W.T. Grant's, Woolworths. Yeah. My cousin Andrew is a few years older than me, lives in Queens. He built the Guillotine. And every time we would visit, I would sneak up to the room, put the guy's head on the thing, pull the thing, I was obsessed with it. Finally to the point where my cousin says, take it, just take it. And then a few years later, I'm in the store with my neighbors, and we see the Guillotine model, and we buy it. Because it was it had nothing to do with the violence, okay? It had to do with the fact that you build something and it works.
Sure.
Okay? And then from that, I said, hey, look at all these models. Look, there's a convertible, and there's the creature of the Black Lagoon, and there's a spaceship, and that's when models were so plentiful. And Palmer models, because it was easy.
Sure.
And they all were definitely sooner or later met their demise by a cherry bomb, but that's a whole other story. And then it was really slot racing. Because I was too young to really build the slot car itself. So my dad would do the mechanics. He'd put together the chassis and the motor and everything, and I would paint the body, glue bomb. Okay, but we'd go slot racing every Saturday, and it was that momentum, and every kid in school had the same passion. Muscle cars were big. There were magazines about cars, magazines about models. It was our culture.
Yes, sure.
Something that we really miss these days.
Yeah.
So we keep it close to our hearts, and we build as close as we can.
I got started 1964, the World's Fair. We saw the Chrysler turbine car.
Oh, yeah.
And when you left the display, they had model kits there. Now, I was only 5 years old, but Dad bought me the Chrysler turbine car. I didn't build it, but I can still remember this to this day, sitting at the kitchen table, watching my dad do almost all the work, getting the Chrysler turbine. It was molded in that bronze color. I could still remember him messing with the little bucket seats and getting frustrated.
Everything worked on that car.
It was amazing.
That was a fairly complex kit.
It was a crazy complex kit, especially for the day, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that got me hooked. After that, I wanted more. I wanted to build a model myself. And for Christmas that year, I ended up getting a couple of Tom Daniels kits. Right? Then I was 6 and 7 as the year. Then I really just started building them myself. And never painted anything, but glued them all together. And that was it. It started like that. So for me, my dad got me going. I always loved cars. If they tried to give me other models, airplanes, boats, just tossed them on the side.
Like, right.
If it wasn't a car, I wanted nothing to do with it. So
it's funny you mentioned that. My godfather worked on aircraft after the war. He flew in the Navy with my dad, and he moved to Puerto Rico. Years later, I was in my teens, and he came to visit, just completely unannounced. And my father says, amongst it, "Yeah, Paulie is building models. You want to see it?" And he walks downstairs, and the first thing he says, "Cars?" I was crushed. Here's a guy that builds airplanes and whatever. I said, "Hold on a minute. I have an airplane somewhere." So at the end of the day, he said to me, "You know that giant monogram vet that you've had your eyes on? He slipped me a $10 bill. He says, go and buy it, but don't tell Dad I gave you the money." So he was very proud of me, even though I wasn't building airplanes. But
As long as you were building.
If anyone's as old as me remembers the golden age of drag racing, there were, at the time, many cars that were exhibition, and wheel standers were a very big part of that. It all started with the Little Red Wagon, which was a Dodge. It was very unstable, and the front end lifted. And rather than canning the project, I think it was Bill Maverick Golden bought the car and turned it into an exhibition machine, showing up at drag strips all around the country doing wheel stands. Well, the craze took on, and everyone was trying to build a more unique and more unusual wheel standing car. And then comes this thing called the backup pickup, which is basically a Ford Econoline pickup truck with a reverse chassis. And this is based on a photo of the actual car. So when you look at it, it literally would go down the strip this way. And because of its uniqueness, I said, I have to build that. And basically, it's a...
how did he see? Did he look through?
Yeah,
I always thought there was a cutout.
right here. The car did have windows, but I'm not as good a window guy as this gentleman here, so I left the windows out. But it's basically a resin body by Jimmy Flintstone. The chassis is from the IMC Little Red Wagon. The engine is a Ford 427 with some aftermarket stacks. And these are customized fuel tanks made with Alclad to make them look metal. The interior is all scratch built to look like photos of the real car, and the rest is decals by a wonderful decal company called Whoopee Cat. They made them special for me.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's just they don't, they don't do this anymore. And the days of this kind of crazy racing are gone. Could you imagine now someone, in the middle of an NHRA race doing a wheel stand? Or it's not corporate enough. They wouldn't allow it. Yeah. And then later on in the 70s, it was match racing. I live on Long Island. I used to go to National Speedway, which is no longer there. And then later on, Englishtown, New Jersey, which is unfortunately not there anymore either. But we'd watch match racing. They would announce 4-wheel standers would show up on a Sunday, and you'd pay and watch them do battle. It was just, Sunday, this Saturday, Sunday, We'd stay up late at night. Thursday night, we listened to WABC radio, and we waited to find out what was coming to the racetrack. Because they started advertising around 11 or 12.
Dan Abrams, cousin Brucey.
Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The other car that I bought in the vintage racing theme, because Paul and I both love vintage racing, was also in the collection of the Jim Devine kits. Our dear friend Jim that passed away, he had a Wild Willie Borscht kit, and in the box he had that resin bantam body, and he had a set of Slicks decals for the Pure Heavens. So I figured he must have had plans to build that car. And I said, geez, I'm going to do it the way I think Jim would have wanted to do it. Used a couple of parts from an old Danbury Mint engine from the Model T dragster, because they had a beautiful chrome blower scoop and the valve covers and the blower. Those came from the Danbury Mint 23T Roadster, whatever it is. The rear wheels are wheels that Bob Dudek machined a long time ago.
Are they resin?
No, the rear wheels are aluminum. And I put a little bit of the Tamiya detail, the accent detailer on it, just to give a little bit of depth around the edge and the rim. And then I did a three-tone paint job, actually just a two-tone paint job. The red is actually decals from the Slicks decal shop. So I took Tamiya Pure White and I took Tamiya Mica Blue, and I masked off the areas, shot the blue. Then I used some 1/64 inch red pinstriping tape, and I covered the line where the blue met the white. And then I immediately, as soon as I got the tape on, I had to get the clear ready and clear it, because the tape wanted to move, on the curve. The tape wanted to start separating. So I pressed the tape down, went all around the edges with separate pieces of red tape, put them together. I had my clear ready, and as soon as I got the tape, I pressed it down one last time, and I doused it with automotive clear to hold those red pinstripes in place. Then I put the decals on later.
That's just so super brave. That's such a high-risk move to make.
It had to do it because there was no way to get any red pinstripes that small that I could get on there. And the red tape worked great, but every time around the turn, it wanted to lift up. And I pressed it down that one last time and doused it with clear.
But the payoff is insane.
Thank you.
I
love that model.
I love the headers. They look hot, literally and figuratively. Because there's so many of these cars that when they ran, they get really, really hot, and there goes the white porcelain.
I used some MIG powders.
So you used dry pigments
Yes,
also?
I used the dry MIG powders, the black smoke for the edge, and then they have another one that's a reddish color, like a rust color. And I mixed a little bit of the rust and the black together, and I made a little, so it had like a pinkish cast to it, and I brushed that on the flat white paint.
You don't seal it or anything?
No, I just wipe it on with a Q-tip and rub it, and then don't touch it after that. I did that after it was on the car.
Very nice.
So it was a fun build and had a good time.
The parachute is scratch built.
No, the parachute is actually from a Danbury Mint car as well. That's from Doug and I joke around because we've used some broken Danbury Mint cars to get some good parts, and they had those beautiful little cloth parachutes that they made.
That's really nice.
I used that.
Great pieces.
It was a great piece. It was a lot of fun, and it was a tribute to our friend Jim.
Yeah, absolutely.
We miss him a lot. And he loved those cars. We would talk about them all the time.